Welcome to Influential Entrepreneurs, bringing you interviews with elite business leaders and experts, sharing tips and strategies for elevating your business to the next level. Here's your host, Mike Saunders.
Hello and welcome to this episode of Influential Entrepreneurs. This is Mike Saunders, the Authority Positioning Coach. Today we have with us Chris Orestis, who's the president of Retirement Genius. Chris, welcome to the program.
Hey, Mike, thanks. Really glad to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk to you because I love when people build a brand around what they do. It's not just, Chris Orestis who helps people make some financial decisions. It is, bam, the Retirement Genius. So let's jump into that. But first, give us a little bit of your background and what your entrepreneurial journey has been like to this point.
Great question. Everybody's journey is different and everybody's journey is interesting. Mine goes back 25 years ago. Right. I started out in Washington, D.C. I actually worked in the White House, worked on Capitol Hill, and then I was a lobbyist for the insurance industry, the health and life insurance industry trade groups for a number of years before starting a company back in 2007 called LifeCare Funding. And what we did was we saw there was an opportunity to help people pay for long-term care by using somewhat of an obscure financial transaction called a life settlement. And that's the sale of a life insurance policy from the original owner to new buyers who are typically big financial institutions. So we teamed up with all the big assisted living, home care companies, nursing home companies around the United States and brought a new financial funding tool to the table for families to be able to access the secondary market value of a life insurance policy. Things took off with that. My company actually ended up being bought and sold a couple times. And then a couple of years ago, we thought to ourselves, it was time to really keep expanding out the tools and the information in ways we could help families address building what we like to call a well-balanced retirement by launching Retirement Genius, which has now really started to catch on and take off. And we're just really excited about what we're able to do to help people address financial planning, health and long-term care security, and lifestyle enrichment, and bring those together to create a well-balanced retirement.
I love how you mention, the secondary market with life insurance. I spent 10 plus years in the mortgage industry and exited during the whole crash of 07, 08. And a lot of people don't realize that in reality, some of these financial instruments are just paper. And you buy and sell, and it's, how much an overage can you get? And so a life insurance policy being used as a tool for, tax advantage growth. Yeah, we hear that, but I've not heard let's now turn it into another type of an asset by going to institutional investors. So that's really cool. And the other thing that I think is really awesome that you just mentioned is you're taking a holistic approach. It's not just show me the numbers. It's not just let me help you with this retirement where like it's some finality thing. It's actually this fluid, ongoing. Let's talk about the lifestyle, because when you quote unquote retire, it's rare, in my opinion, that I hear. It's rare that people just kick back and play golf or travel the rest of their life. They're doing something, and that requires then planning financially, right?
That's right. That's right. And that planning requires balance. Yeah. I always say, it isn't enough to just focus on pursuing money. You obviously need money and financial security in your retirement, but if you sacrifice your health all the way to getting there, then what good is a garage full of Ferraris if you're too sick to drive them?
Yep.
You need to encompass the financial planning to be secure, but you also have to take into account your health, the eventuality of long-term care, and be ready for that. And then to have purpose and meaning in your life. When you get to the stage of retirement, like you say, that outdated notion of, retirement is you're going to play some golf and you're going to sit around on your porch in Florida. That's long since, I think, passé. Now, retirement is really, to me, it's about shifting from doing what you have to do to doing what you want to do. And for so many people, that means continuing to contribute in society, whether it's through a profession or pursuing certain passions, nonprofits. It's bringing value to others and yourself. And the more that you're able to do that in retirement while staying healthy, while working out, eating healthy, the longer you're going to live, the more quality the lifestyle is you're going to live, and the happier you're going to be about being retired.
Yeah. I've heard that kind of setup so many times before, where I want to make this comment and get your opinion as well. It almost feels like you, as a retirement genius, coach, guide, you're really a life coach that helps people make some financial decisions as well, because there's so much goal planning. There's so much, what's the why behind what you want to do? What's the motivation? And then now let's see how finances fit into that. Well, you could be a, personal trainer and be still talking about these life coaching principles and go, oh, well, since you want the health aspect, I'll focus on that. But you really are talking to people about something that many of your clients, I'm sure, don't really think about. They just think about the paycheck this week and this month and retirement's coming up, so I'll deal with that later, right?
Yeah. You really need a roadmap and a plan when you get to that destination, a roadmap to get there. And then what are you going to do when you get there? And I always say it's never too late to start, whether it's savings, whether it's getting healthy, maintaining relationships that are going to be there for you to enrich your lifestyle later in life. It's never too late to start, but it's always better to start as soon as possible. The sooner you're saving and investing, the sooner you're living healthy, the sooner you're maintaining an enriched and purposeful lifestyle, the better things are going to be. But don't ever feel like it's too late and you give up. It's never too late to start.
Yeah. It's like the old saying about the boy, it's a hot day and I sure wish I had a shade tree here. Well, I should have planted that 30 years ago, but the next best time to plant it is today, because you got to start at some point, right? You got to make some progress. So what do you mentioned long-term care, and I think that tends to have some misconceptions in what all that is. And we could talk for probably days on end about the intricacies of long-term care, but what are some of the 30,000 foot view regarding long-term care that people should be aware of?
Long-term care is the Achilles heel of everybody's retirement planning. So many people blow that one off when they're sitting down and doing comprehensive retirement planning, and the subject of long-term care comes up. The thought of whether you're going to buy a long-term care insurance policy, or you would maintain life insurance policies for later down the road that you could then use the life settlement to help fund your care. Whatever the vehicles that you are being presented to you, so many people are pass on them. And they have this notion that, well, it's never going to happen to me. And if it does happen to me, there's stuff that just takes care of it, right? Insurance or government programs, Social Security is going to pay for it. And there's such a misunderstanding of how long-term care in this country works, what it costs, what is covered, what isn't, what it takes to qualify. And the shame of it is that this is a subject that people avoid, their family members avoid. So what we always say is, look, you need to understand that from a percentage odds perspective, 70+% of people when they 65 or older are going to need some form of long-term care. And that's expensive.
Yeah.
A lot of it you've got to pay out of pocket. It isn't Medicare only will cover 100 days of rehab in a skilled rehab facility in between being released from a hospital and hopefully going home. Medicare, that's it. They don't cover long-term care. Medicaid can cover long-term care, but to qualify for Medicaid, you've got to be spent down to a poverty level. That's meant for people who are living at the poverty level. So the people that think, well, I'll go on to Medicaid, I hate to tell them, but be careful what you wish for, because once you get on to Medicaid for your long-term care, you're sort of at the bottom of the barrel of the coverage. The good stuff, you want to stay home, you want home care, you want to go into a high-end assisted living community, which I'm going to tell you, I've been to some of these, and it's like living in a Ritz-Carlton.
Yeah.
I'd move into some of them tomorrow if I could, but those cost real money. You don't just that the government's not covering lobster dinners and cocktail hours at assisted living communities. I can tell you that, but they're available if you can afford it. So it's a matter of the family having a plan, being open with their communication, talking amongst themselves, and not leaving it as this untouched, undiscussed topic until somebody's in a crisis and all of a sudden you're scrambling. You've got a loved one who's in the hospital, and the discharge nurse says to you, okay, we're going to discharge tomorrow. what do you have set up for long-term care? And you're all looking at each other going, we've never talked about this before. And under fire, you've got to become an expert in navigating America's long-term care industrial complex.
And that's not the time to make educated, wise, sane, calm decisions. You're in the heat of the moment.
You really are. And that is the absolute worst time to be making those decisions. As the saying goes, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. And when it comes to long-term care, when people don't plan, they're putting themselves in a position to fail in the long-term care environment, which is a place you do not want to be failing in.
I think you touched on this when you first started responding about long-term care, but I want to kind of dive in deep on this aspect of, someday I'll, that location, that island called someday I'll handle this or do that. And I think that people clump in retirement. Oh, that'll come later or whatever. And same with long-term care, that tends to be like a bullet point up underneath dealing with retirement. So, when people realize that 70% of people 65 and older, are going to need some form of long-term care, kind of makes you go, well, what would be some indicators that at a certain age that someone could go, you know what, maybe I better scoot up my time frame to deal with, plan, or set into motion some of these long-term care / retirement plans, because what, as my parent, maybe you're the child and your parents are starting to deal with this, that, or the other. Maybe it's some health things that aren't really devastating, but it's like, okay, now we're what are some of those, red flags that people should be noticing to go, I'm moving the timetable up and taking this seriously?
Yeah. And it's funny because right now during the holiday season, which is the opportunity we have to be talking to each other, families are getting together and I advise them, you want to be, and whether it's the holidays or any time of year, you're together with a loved one, you want to be looking for physical deterioration, mental deterioration, and environmental deterioration. The house all of a sudden is messy like it didn't used to be. There's damage around the house. A loved one's getting much more frail. They're having a hard time with balance, rapid weight loss, not remembering who people are. It's one thing to walk in a room and not remember why you went in there, what it is you were looking for. We all do that. But it's another thing to walk in a room and not know where you are.
Yeah,
that's a different story. So you start losing your ability to function with your activities of daily living, which are known as ADLs, or loved ones are starting to act as caregivers themselves. They're starting to provide the care to someone, and they just feel like it's just an evolution of their lifestyle, but they start becoming full-time caregivers. Those things start to happen. You start to see that. Those are real clues. It's time to get into action, communicate among the family about, are we all seeing the same thing? Do we all agree what we're seeing? And is it time now to start having a discussion with our loved one about, we may need to start moving forward to consider long-term care options, home care options, and then how do we pay for it? What are the things that are in place? Is there an organized file about insurance policies, powers of attorney, financial records? What are the wishes of the loved one themselves when it comes to making the move forward into actually going into some form of long-term care, whether it's somewhere else or at home?
That I like those granular, here's some environmental things. Oh, the house is, falling apart more than normal, or, boy, dad sure normally would keep the screens, up to date. And so some of those things I just think are helpful to be able to be on the watch. And then, there are going to be siblings or family members that are involved in that decision. So it's not just you, being the bull in the china closet going, let's take mom to this or dad to that. But it's like, okay, let's notice the end. Is it just my imagination, or is dad more, or have you guys noticed? I think that's a big thing. And then when you have that meeting of the minds, then it's like, okay, we're not going to pull triggers now and disrupt and upset the apple cart. But what are some things we could be considering or starting to research? And maybe sibling A can look into this, and we can, get on a Zoom once in a while and just kind of, be a little bit more aware. I think that's actually showing kind of that familial family love that needs to be done, rather than just kiss on the cheek and high five at Christmas time.
Right. Long-term care is a family journey. It's not something typically experienced alone, and it's going to reveal itself typically one of two ways. Either this gradual erosion of the ability to live independently becomes recognized in the ways that I was describing. And then people need to start talking about it, recognize it, and begin moving forward a plan to act on it. The other way can actually be very sudden. Somebody slips, falls, breaks a hip, they're in the hospital, and they're getting released to a rehab facility. Sometimes they're not going to leave. That's the gateway into they're staying in a nursing home, or they're going to get released instead of to home to an assisted living community, or maybe they will go home, but it's going to require serious home care services. Could be even skilled medical home care services, or some high-end home care assistance. So it can be gradual or it can be sudden, but when it comes, and it doesn't care what your opinion is. You're going to go down that path, and the question is just going to be, are you prepared for it?
Yeah, that's a really big point. And you know what? It's I teach some college classes, and I get the question from students from time to time. Oh, the due date was midnight tonight, but I just had, and then pick a litany of excuses, right? But this came up, and you're like, well, that happened at that moment in time at 11:59 before the due date, but you could have done this 2 days ago, 3, 4, 5 days ago. So it shouldn't have been an emergency situation, because you should have been dealing with it sooner. So to your point, you can say it probably won't or may not, but at least have some foundation in place so that you can quickly at least know who to connect with. You might not be the genius yourself, but maybe that, well, I went over to Chris's website and I got some good information. I'm on his education update list. So let's wrap up with that, Chris. If someone is listening to this going, you know what, I know that it could come up. I want to be somewhat educated so that I know the go-to person to go to. What's the best way that they can reach out and connect with you?
Absolutely. I've been out educating people on this subject matter, working on this subject matter in government, in private sector for 25 years. I've published 2 books. I have a third coming out in 2022 called Retire Like a Genius. I've been quoted and in the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, AARP. I'm constantly out there. I tour the country speaking. And we put it all together on our website, retirementgenius.com. You're going to find a wealth of information there, written material, published articles and books, video content. We're adding more and more video content that's easily digestible for family members, for people to check specific issues, what you need to know about Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, long-term care, insurance, annuities, name it. We're covering the waterfront of everything that people need to know to build and then manage that well-balanced retirement, financial planning, health and long-term care security, and lifestyle enrichment, bringing those 3 legs of the stool together to build the right and well-balanced retirement for them. Go to retirementgenius.com. You'll find information there. You can sign up for all kinds of newsletters and outreach and ongoing education and just anything we can do to educate one more person today is what we get up and focus on every single day.
Awesome. Well, Chris, thank you so much for coming on. It was a real pleasure talking with you today.
Mike, great to be on, and I really enjoy your show and applaud the work you do to get so much good information out there to people.
Thank you so much.
You've been listening to Influential Entrepreneurs with Mike Saunders. To learn more about the resources mentioned on today's show or listen to past episodes, visit www.influentialentrepreneurssradio.com.